Hi, this is Sarah Meitzel with the Pigsty, and today we're here with Duane Stateler. He is the president of the National Pork Producers Council and a pig producer from Macomb, Ohio. Thanks so much for being with us today, Duane.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. It's nice to be with you.
Very good. Let's start, Duane, by telling me just a little bit about your farming operation in the great state of Ohio, which is where I'm from as well.
Yes, well, we're up in the northwest part of Ohio, in the edge of the flat country, and as they like to call it. Uh, I farm with my son Anthony. Basically, does all the day-to-day operations and stuff. Of course, I still help and I do the book work. And but he has taken over about 8 years ago. He basically took over running of the farm, and we have uh, we have two 2,400 head finishers, and we have a 2,400 head nursery. And we are a contract grower for Herd Family Farms now. And then we farm our 600 acres, and then we have some rented ground, and then Anthony does about 1,000 acres of custom combining and a little bit of custom planting on top of it. So that's the size of our operation. We're
You
just a
guys,
small
you're
farm
bu-
here in Northwest Ohio.
you're busy though. That's a lot to take on, it sounds like. So very good. Well, hey, thanks for sharing a little bit about your operation and your family. I know last week you were in sunny Orlando, Florida for the National Pork Industry Forum. And I'm jealous because I wanted to be there but couldn't, and thus we're doing this conversation over Zoom. But can you give us a quick recap of Pork Forum and what happened there?
Well, Pork Farm happens once every year in March, and that's where all the producers from states that are appointed come to do the business that we look forward to every year and hear from producers. And it's also a great opportunity for them to all network with one another.
Yeah.
But there were a couple resolutions that were brought forth from the producers as far as for things that they like to see or things that were done. One of them was on the ensure that we keep our insurance that we've had, the livestock risk protection insurance and the livestock gross margin insurance. Those are a couple items that we went after and were actually put in force in 2020. And in 2020, there were about just under 400,000 head were marketed through that program. Well, last year we reached over 40 million.
Oh, wow.
And it's a great insurance policy that our producers have to be able to protect themselves from the bottom side and capture a little bit of the top side of the market. And it's working real well. USDA is pleased with the program. We're pleased with the program, but one of the things they wanted to make sure was that it continues on, that it doesn't get
Right.
dropped. That was a resolution that was one of them that was brought forth. And of course, then the other one was to work with the state associations and state agencies as SHIP is in the final rulemaking of USDA. Once that rule rolls out, the producers want to make sure that NPPC makes sure that we get everything going when the states and the state agencies to have that, because it's going to be very, very important for our protection of the industry on the health side of it, especially not only against foreign animal disease, but also against some of the endemic diseases that we have. It's a good
Right.
way to really take care of things. And it was sort of copied after the poultry people
Right.
had done that years ago. And so we sort of took it after theirs because it's a good program and it's good for the producers and we hope it provides as much for us as what it has for them.
Excellent. Any other highlights or that you wanted to hit on, or are those the big ones?
I think those are the big ones from our side. Of course, I don't want to steal any thunder from National Pork Board, but of course they came out with a new
Right.
tagline at the time, so I'll let them talk about that. But that was excitement from the other part. A lot of people maybe don't realize that on our checkoff system, we have a checkoff system which is the National Pork Board, and then we have the NPPC that's separate, and it's by you know donation only, you might say. We have a rate set, but it's voluntary. You don't have to belong if you don't want to. But for our members that belong, why we do the advocacy. So we do talk with one another and make sure that, we're going in the same direction, both units are, but we're completely separate. So that's one nice thing about our checkoff that's a little different from the others that you hear that make the news every once in a while that someone wants to do away with.
Right. Very good. And so National Pork Board is kind of the research side of it, right?
Right.
And,
Research and
and
education. They take care of the
yep,
research and the education, and then we take care of the advocacy
right. And
for the industry
policy and things like
and
that.
policy
So
and things like that. And we like to say we go in and kick the door down for trade, and they come in and bring the product in. So,
it's always kind of in my mind, it's like church and state. You have to keep those two separate, right?
right, right,
Because you guys are both doing different things. So
right.
very
And we
good.
both need each other.
Right, right. They go hand in hand, right? But they also need to be separate. They're important for each other. I agree wholeheartedly. So, can you tell me a little bit about your history of getting involved at the local, state, and federal level in terms of advocacy and education?
Well, for me, it started out back in, I would say, the early 2000s that, we had uh, decided that Anthony had decided he wanted to come back home and he wanted to farm. And so we had to look at expansion,
Right,
for what we were doing and how we were going to do that. So that's when we changed our operation over to become a contract grower and raise pigs and finish pigs out. That was the deal was that we would get that taken care of. And then Anthony didn't have to worry so much on the weather, whether it rained or it didn't rain, in order to, be able to depend on stuff for his family. So that was our goal. But when we started out in that in the early 2000s, why all of a sudden we had this activist group that were being funded that they thought they knew more about agriculture than what those of us that work with it 24/7 do. And so I saw that as becoming a little bit of a threat. And that's when I started in advocacy. And it was in 2008 I was brought on the Ohio board, and I served there till 2016. I was president in 2014. And of course, in 2014, if you remember, up in my area, Toledo went without water for 3 days because of the algae bloom.
right,
And so that brought a whole different set of problems to where I live within the Western Lake Erie Basin that feeds the river, or the Maumee River that
right,
feeds into the lake from Ohio. And it was all about water quality. And we like to think that we're doing everything right, but you know, we have people that's telling us that we're not. And so we were one of the three farms that was chosen as the Blanchard River Demonstration Farms. That was a partnership between Farm Bureau, NRCS, and USDA ARS. Matter of fact, we have two edge of field testing sites on our farm that where we study water quality. We know everything that's leaving the field. We know what's going out through the tile, and we know what's going off through the surface. So we've been monitoring that ever since 2015 here on our farm. So collecting data and doing different research on different practices we can do to try to maintain as much of the nutrient levels in our farm as what we can.
right. That's fantastic. And it's kind of those opportunities that come up really knowledge is power, right? So when you're talking about, starting to capture specific data on your farm, right? It really helps you understand, right? Even better, right? You guys are all trying to do the best that you can, but once you have more data, you have more information that you can make you can make better decisions with more data, right?
Yes, and I won't tell anybody that it was not a little bit of a nervous feeling, when we put that testing equipment in. We thought we were doing everything right,
Right,
but we were open to it. If we're not, let's find out what we can do to make it better.
right,
But it was quite a relief to see the results come from the first several years to
right.
make sure, and I wasn't afraid of it. I went right up to as close to the testing equipment as what I could with the application of manure, and to see how we were doing. And
Right.
we're doing fine. Nothing of what we're being blamed of. So that's a good result.
Very good. And there's always room for improvement, right? Once you have data, then you can even make it better than when
Oh,
you have it
you can make it.
sometimes, right?
Yes, we've improved it since then. I mean,
Right,
the practices that we've done, we have done a better job. I mean, we were doing okay, but
right.
just as you said, you can always do better.
Yeah,
And that should be what we do. We strive to raise a better pig today than what we did yesterday. Well, we're going to strive to do better with the environment than what we did, because we have the perfect sense for sustainability. I mean, sustainability has been the big word here for a long time, but we as pork producers and beef producers and stuff, we take that manure and we put it back on for the growing crop, and it completes the perfect cycle.
Right.
We don't have any waste. We use what people consider as waste. We use that for nutrients. So
Right.
yes, it works out real well.
That's awesome. Very good. So you are the new president, right, of National Pork Producers Council, and I think at National Pork Forum you got brought on. I mean, you started your I assume it's a
Yep.
1 year term, right? Your
Yes.
term. And now that you're president, what are some of your top priorities to be watching and monitoring, et cetera?
Well, unfortunately, we've still got a few that have been there for the last several years. We're hoping to get a solution for Prop 12,
Right.
for this disruption of the marketplace. It we it's okay if you have one, but there's no limit to what you've got with the one. There can be others, and there are several others that are proposed in states this year
Mhm.
that we're keeping our eye on. But that just makes it difficult for everywhere. I mean, not only the farmer, but the marketplace, and you can't understand how many different SKUs and things that develops on the market side and the warehouse side, and it just, as we've seen in California, it's drove the average price up 20%. Loins are up 40%. It just sort of depends. So we've got to try to find a solution to that before someone piggybacks it and takes it onto the crop side. You know,
Right.
that's a scare of everybody, and everybody now has come to the conclusion that this isn't a good thing. So it's worked in with the farm bill. Of course, we're desperate for a farm bill. I
Yeah.
hope they can get the farm bill done. I mean, we basically, until about the last farm bill, had never been involved much in the farm bill.
Hmm.
But because after China broke with AFS, we became a big part of the farm bill because, boy, if we have a foreign animal disease that comes into this, whether it be
Right.
classical swine fever, whether it be African swine fever, or whether it be foot and mouth disease. I mean, Poland just broke here a week
Yeah.
ago, in
It's
another area.
scary. Yeah.
If that hits us, to be able to regionalize and be able to continue with trade is detrimental to us. So at that point in time, we asked for some money to make sure that the NELMS labs were staffed so that
Mhm.
we could have, be able to diagnose, get diagnostic tests on timely. Some of that staffing had been done. We wanted them up to date. We wanted the bank, the vaccine bank. We wanted
Yeah.
it brought up to date and supplied and get that stuff. So it's basically, and then also supplies for the vets in case we get a natural disaster to
Right.
make sure that they have the stuff that they need to get that stuff in reserve ahead of time. So we asked for a small bit of funding in that, and we just want to see that continue on because that's not only good for our industry, but for the other industries, themselves to make sure that all those things are available for us in case we need them.
Right. You have to take those lessons learned from other industries, right? And preparation is key to these foreign animal diseases, especially, right? So,
Yeah, we've sent groups from pork board and NPPC over to Europe to see what
right.
happened, how did it work, what can we do better, and we've brought that stuff back. And so I think that if we can get shipped through, and then right now we have into USDA, they're in the writing process for us for identification for hogs to where we can identify the movement. So we're capable of regionalizing so we
Right.
can protect that trade. And hopefully with this slowed things down with the change of administrations, of course, when you bring a new administration in, but hopefully we get some writing done on that this year to where we can get that through in another year. And then we've got our list complete. We've got ship and we've got the regionalization process developed, and we can be in good shape. That we'll be in better shape. Never be in good shape for a foreign
Right.
animal disease. We'll be in better shape in case we were to get something like that.
Got it. Very good. Um, this kind of rolls into that. What challenges, short or long term, does the pork industry face? And you've kind of talked a little bit about foreign animal disease. What other things are you concerned about? What keeps you up at night, Duane?
Well, well, right now, it's a subject I think that's near and dear to a lot of farmers' hearts. Is the trade and the tariffs. You
Right.
know, we had dealt with this in the first administration. Of course, pork was sort of the point of the steer at that point in time with when we were just talking with China. But
Mhm.
now we've enlarged to where some of our best partners of Mexico and Canada to the north and the south, are involved with the tit for tat on the tariffs. And of course, we don't know just what the reciprocal tariffs are going to look like. That's a new venue.
Right.
So I think we, like everybody else, are setting back to see just how is this going to work? How is it going to affect our product? And are we going to see much change in it? That's a pretty big item. And I wish I had the answers for you, but I don't, because we don't know. Just, April 2nd, we're going to have a lot better idea of it once we see it come out. We've got some preliminary stuff, but still we're looking and trying to size up just what that means for us in the pork industry.
Got it. That's the big one. Is there anything else? Any other challenges that you see? I mean, there's a lot of things out there like labor, but you guys have been dealing with that for a while now, right?
We've been dealing with the labor situation, and unfortunately, the labor situation, we've gotten it better with some of the TN and some of the outside visas, getting
Right.
that worked through, that we're seeing some relief on that. But still, for us in the rural areas, the unemployment is low. Everybody that wants a job has got a job. So if someone leaves or someone retires, it's just very difficult in the rural areas to find someone to replace that individual. And
Mhm.
that is a problem. We're fortunate that, for us at our size, why we do everything ourselves.
Right.
But you take like where the pigs are raised, where they're born, and in the sow units and the
Yeah.
specialties that are done there, that's a little bit more labor intensive than what it is for us on finishing them out. So it's been a struggle, and I can see that still being a struggle going forward for a while. Hopefully that comes to where we find an answer for all this. But labor is a big issue, and we found something with the tariffs here just in the last since the first the year of the new administration that we've only suffered through it for a couple of days because they come to an understanding on it. But we have an awful lot of pigs that cross over that from Canada that are raised in Canada but are finished in the United States.
Right.
A lot of that is because they lost a couple large packing plants a couple years ago, and with them not having the place to do their own packaging and stuff, why they found themselves in an operation to where they're sending the pigs, into the U.S. and we're finishing them out. Well, the country of label origin,
Right.
labeling on that, and especially when it comes to the tariff, okay, there are little pigs that come across. Well, the tariff on a baby pig isn't quite as much as what it is on some of those places are still, having to send slaughter hogs into the U.S. to be killed because there's not the capability of doing that in Canada. And
Right.
then some of that meat comes across and is slaughtered and goes back. And that creates quite a bit of havoc at the packing plants, with the difference of the labeling. And
Right.
a lot of people don't understand that the genetics, whether it's in Canada or the US or Mexico, everybody's pretty much using the same genetic lines. The operations today are not as different as what they used to be 50 years ago,
Yeah.
of raising. I mean, everybody's diets, these diets now that we feed our pigs are trimmed down to where, you have 10, 12, 14 diets throughout the life of that pig. And used to be you had two,
Right.
so
Right.
everything has changed. It's more to the science and better for the pig. The nutrition is there at every step of their life is there. So there's not that much difference, but it's that created the biggest hassle over our first 2 months of trade disruptions with tariffs that we weren't really prepared for. Hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I was just at NCBA's CattleCon event in early February, and the Canadian farmer, I spoke to a Canadian farmer, and he was talking about how integrated that the beef industry is with the U.S., right? And
Hmm.
it's the same kind of thing. There's these things that just have happened, right? And then all of a sudden, when trade barriers go up, some of that can't happen or is going to be more costly for people, right?
Yes, and it all reflects in the dollar that the consumer has to spend, on what they want to eat. That's the ultimate result of all the regulations and stuff. The meat is safe. I mean, there's nothing any
Right.
better than having a USDA inspected label, whether it's here or across the world. I mean, it's the most sought after label there is, USDA inspected. And to be able to have that sticker put on that meat, you can be assured that it is good quality meat.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about the next bit here. What do you want U.S. pork producers to know about ongoing advocacy efforts that your board is leading with NPPC?
I think it's important for me to try to get across to the producers that, our staff is out there working 24/7, 365, just like our producers are raising the pigs. They're out there, they're on the hill or in the meetings, whether it be dietary guidelines, where it be a whole list of things, whether it be regulations at the state
Mhm.
levels, especially in places where we've got people, but we don't have pigs.
Yeah,
It's a lot easy. It's real easy for us to oversee, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, where the pigs are
right.
because that's our home base. But we supply an awful lot of food to a lot of places where there aren't pigs and there are a lot of people. And to try to get them to understand, what we do and how we do it is our staff is working on that and watching out for us in those states just as much as they are and watching out for it in the states where we raise the pigs themselves. And I think that's important for everybody to know. And they're even forethought of looking out, what's coming down the road. And that's what the board is there for. The staff brings that stuff to the board and we prioritize and give them a direction on, where they need to go and, what they need to look at. And that's we're just there to guide and keep the staff, in the right direction we think is best for the producers. So, but if it wasn't for our staff, and it's an incredible staff that we've got, why we wouldn't be able to do the things we do and wouldn't be able to ward off the things that we've got. I mean, our staff has got us in places where we didn't think we would be. I mean, we've got the three-legged stool in the farm bill, in the last farm bill, and it's there again. And the question to maybe solve Prop 12 is there. So that isn't done by me as a board member.
Right.
That's done by farmers coming in, and when we have a visit to the hill and for their relationship, that I was surprised by, had the opportunity to meet Thomas Irmer, who's the whip from Minnesota. And he said something that I've heard it before, but it really resonated when he told me. He says, there are very few people that travel to Washington, D.C. to see me in my office.
Hmm.
Very few. And he says, for those that do, I know their name.
Interesting.
And he said, one thing about the pork producers, I know their name. And then when the staff comes in, they say the exact same thing that the producer says. He says, I have an awful lot of people calling on my office that say they're representing my constituents back home.
Great.
But he says, it's the ones that I know their name and they're pulling the lever for me. He says, those are the ones I remember and I listen to. So, that's
That's
important for
interesting. Right.
our producers to know. I know it takes some time to take, some time off the farm to spend a day or two to go down and talk with them. But I want the producers to know that their name is remembered because there aren't very many people that do that.
Very good. And one last thing, if you could just talk just a little bit. I know when we were talking before we started the interview, you mentioned that you did have the opportunity to speak with the new Secretary of Agriculture.
Yes, on March the 3rd, why our officer corps was in and we met with Secretary Rollins and had a nice discussion. She had only been on the job 2 weeks at that point in time. We're one of the few that had been in to talk to her yet at that time. And it was she's still trying to gather herself. And, I would think she would appreciate, I think she's got help coming, but to get the deputy secretaries, confirmed in the next couple of weeks, I think would be very helpful for her to where she can really, have the whole staff diving and going and,
Yeah.
getting back in there. But she was very open. She was very receptive. did not know a whole lot about the pork industry, took a lot of good notes, and we had good conversation. And so that was the start of something.
Right.
That's how you get together, is getting communication and have an open dialogue so that when rough times come, while you're prepared for it, when good times come, you can pat one another on the back.
Yeah, definitely. Especially I would think in this battle with Prop 12, helping her understand all the implications of what's happening there, because that's a battle that's been ongoing, right?
Yes.
That needs to get some clarity soon, hopefully. So
Yes, and we've come a long way with our own producers. I mean, this is a capitalistic society. We had producers that, were chasing that, $5 or $10 and are afraid that that extra money that the producer or that the consumer's paying for that product might go away. Well, we don't have enough demand yet to be able to satisfy California. But it's the fact that if we get that and we get something else, they now see the idea that if we get two or three Prop 12s, how much disruption that is for our industry. And
yeah,
especially if they start copycatting that to where they would make some regulation on GMO corn or something with soybeans, or start restricting the use of a herbicide or something like that, that takes it out of the farmer's hands and what we've known as a good safe practice. That's when it becomes a detriment, and all that does is affect the cost of the food that the consumer is wanting to purchase.
yeah, just makes food prices go up higher, right? That's in my opinion, I
Yes.
guess. So.
Yes.
Very good. Well, hey, thank you so much for all your time today, Duane. We really appreciate the opportunity to hear from the new president. And it's exciting stuff going on in the pork industry. And it's Pork Forum. I've not attended it, but it's on my to-do list. I've always wanted to go because it is that time when the state associations come together, and that's exciting for you guys as an organization, because that's, knowledge is power. You get people together, and that networking opportunity really can spark a lot of insights and things like that, I think.
Well, next year we'll be in Kansas City, and I hope you get the opportunity to come join us.
Fingers crossed. We'll try to do it. Try to do it. So very good. Well, hey, thanks again for your time today, Duane.
Thank you for having me, Sarah, and it's been a pleasure to talk to a fellow Ohioan.
Very good. Me too. This is Sarah Mikesell with the Pig Site.